Welcome to Back to Facts. I'm your host, Tatiana Prophet. I've been running this. I created the page in February 2017, and it's hard to believe it's been 5 years. But I kept on riding the wave of the Trump news cycle, which was extremely difficult, and it's still difficult because a lot of people are paying more attention. At the end of the day, people are paying more attention, even though it just seems like such a such a poop show. Sorry. Uh, so even with Trump kind of in the background or looming, scaring people, the news cycle is still exhausting. It's still like a roller coaster. I mean, did you hear? So the DOJ, I think the CDC was caught a little bit flat-footed when that young judge in Florida, ruled the public transportation mask mandate unconstitutional and unlawful. But they got it together, met with their overlords, and decided they're going to fight. They're going to fight the mandate. Now, I called that because I said, well, I mean, what normally happens is you get these headlines and everybody's like, whatever it is, or, and then, of course, the next step happens. If the party who lost decides to appeal. So the DOJ now is following, quote, CDC guidance and appealing the mask mandate on planes. So almost every state is now open for indoor masking, including Los Angeles. People can wear masks if they want to, and yet, and even though the CEOs of at least 4 of the major carriers, passenger airlines, have said that their air filtration systems in the plane they've all been replaced, and they're so good that you're actually safer. I don't know about that, but you're actually safer on a plane than other places indoors. The mask mandate, they're going to fight it, even though all the CEOs say it's not necessary. Now, of course, they are business people, right? They're not doctors, but I'm sure that behind their statements there is an expert that they bought and paid for. So you always have to weigh these things. That's the thing, is that people will be like, oh, since when are CEOs making health policy? Or, I don't like Elon Musk because, he's pro AI. And I've had all those thoughts. Or, on the other side, the CDC can't be trusted because they're not really following science. They're following some cherry-picked paper. Yeah, scientific papers I'm referring to. So we have all these thoughts. And yet, at the end of the day, what we need to remind ourselves of is that transparency and the checks and balances of transparency, if done right, is the solution to all of these ideas of, oh, I don't know if somebody's bad or they're good, or I don't know, he's really self-serving, or he's a narcissist, or, this and that. It's the transparency that is so important. And what does that look like? Well, for the 21st century, we're creating it. And that's why I thought that Elon Musk's TED Talk a few days ago was very interesting, because he wants people not to have any suspicion that they're being shadow banned, because they will know when their tweets have been minimized, or their videos have been minimized. He didn't use that word, but it's all going to be open source. Now, I'm sure that people who don't want to lose control will say that it's too difficult to have the open source algorithm for social media. But that is just, that's what a lot of people said about mass producing electric cars too. And, in my last live video about Elon Musk, I was saying that I'm not sure what his goals and motives are, because those Teslas are so uh, they're so energy intensive and mineral intensive, to mine all the things for the batteries. But Elon Musk actually mentioned that in his talk. And I guess the key would be to get better at it, to get better at producing these, so that we can deal with our emissions problem as well as sustainability of energy. Now, I hear we have a lot more oil than we think, but I'd have to really delve into the science. Again, every arena in America and the world, but especially America and Europe, every arena has paid experts who now have um, sold their souls to taking a certain point of view. And that's why the scientific research world is so compromised. That's why we see murkiness in the whole pandemic situation. That's why we see murkiness in the whole energy situation too. So like you hear, oh, we have plenty of oil, and it's like, well, what kind of oil? Is it so energy intensive that you have to sift it out of, rock and sand, the tar sands? So there's so many moving parts when we want to deal with our modern world. And sadly, those who we trust to be stewards of the information, from the scientists to the national media, have completely failed in their duty to keep us informed and prepared for the 21st century. And so they'll probably say it's too difficult to have an open source algorithm. But so in order to outsmart them, you have to be kind of a couple steps ahead. They apparently, the SEC for some reason wanted to shut down. He calls it Tesla, and he was telling me the story about that. I don't know the whole situation, but I'm going to be looking into it. Believe me. Now we know there's a problem with short selling on the stock market, and there has been a problem since probably well before the 2008 housing debacle. But Elon Musk claimed that Tesla was the victim of the biggest short selling attack in history. And whatever it was that he did in trying to keep the company afloat and keep the financing going, the SEC did not like, specifically the San Francisco office. And they accused him of lying. Sound familiar? And then he said that he did not lie, but they basically said if he didn't admit to it, the banks would immediately remove all funding for Tesla. He said that was the equivalent of holding a gun to your child's head. So the banks, what? Were they given instructions by the Federal Reserve banks? I mean, that's really scary. That kind of a thing is tantamount on a much larger scale to that woman who had her bank account seized because she made a $50 donation to the Canadian trucker convoy. But really, and so what I'm seeing is they could not take down Tesla because they don't really want to solve the problem, right? They don't want to solve the climate issue. They don't want to solve the energy issue. They don't want to solve the waste issue. Look at the mask waste now that we have. And all the plastic packaging that still gets made. But so they don't even really want to solve any type of global warming issue. And they certainly don't want to solve the transparency problem. So what I'm trying to say is that even Elon Musk said, right directly to the interviewer, who's the founder of TED Talks, I think, he said, well, I'm a mixed bag. you know? And ain't that the truth? We can all work to be our best selves. And what he's doing is he sees a need. He sees that it's an actual existential threat to civilization to have this lack of transparency, this murkiness surrounding almost every single aspect of our lives. And all of us feel it. Even if we don't watch the national news, even if we're just like a school child in a major city or whatever it is, we feel this suppression of information. And remember, well, no matter who's in the White House, but especially the Obama, Clinton, Biden cabal people, Faction A, they say transparency, transparency, transparency. And the more they say transparency, that's inversely proportional to how transparent they actually are. As we can see with Freedom of Information Act requests that have been made for the last 15 years, even, they've stonewalled, the federal agencies have stonewalled. We never really found out what happened with Fast and Furious, the operation where we decided to sell, the government decided to sell a bunch of guns down um, to the drug cartel on the border and try to track them and catch them. And then a border agent ended up getting killed with one of those guns. So we never found out what actually happened. We never found out what actually happened at Benghazi. Do you feel like you have any understanding of it at all? No, doesn't make sense at all. And so these investigations, we haven't had a decent investigation since the Church Committee in the 70s, and even that was a limited hangout. Deliberately, I mean, what they admitted was, a very limited hangout is you admit to a very small portion that you can't really deny of a situation, and then you just keep everything secret, and you also pick a scapegoat, and, you pin it on him. Which is kind of like what happened with Oliver North in the Iran-Contra situation. But I'm at my destination now, and I just wanted to say that the lack of transparency of the last 15 years is stunning. It's jaw-dropping. So we can talk about all these different issues. We can talk about journalism. We can talk about figuring out whether someone has an agenda. But at the end of the day, we need to solve this transparency problem. I welcome your comments to say what you think would be a good idea or thoughts on anything that I've said. And I also am planning to do another paid event. I want to zoom in on the straw man argument, because the straw man argument, I think, might be the most common one used by the media today and by political operatives. And I don't think I've explained it very well. So that will be my next paid event, maybe in about a week or so. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday.